Okay, also, we know that uh, I'm sorry, not Kirk Burrowes, Burrowes, who is the manager of Biggie's estate, he is actually suing Wayne Barrow. He is suing Faith. So I have the complaint right here, and I'm going to get into it. Wayne Burrowes has come up in the media as of late after the release of the documentary because he is claiming that the statements made by Kirk Burrowes are false. The statements being that Puffy basically tried to recoup Biggie's funeral expenses. So Wayne Barrow has been in the news refuting what Kirk Burrowes said, and he is actively suing Faith Evans, pretty much saying that she stole the estate, and that she doesn't have a rightful claim to it. So let's get into it here. Okay, so we see Wayne Barrow right here as a trustee of Valletta Wallace, Biggie's mom, and she basically made him trustee. This is before she died, so she has a seemingly close relationship with Wayne Barrow, who was the manager of Biggie, and I believe he also used to manage J. Cole. Okay, so versus Faith Evans, this was filed in the past summer in July 2025. So verified complaint. Plaintiff Wayne Barrow as trustee of the Valletta Wallace Revocable Trust under agreement dated December 14th, 2020. So he knew her for at least 5 years because she passed away, I believe, in February, right? And amended on February 6th, 2025, by and through his undersigned attorneys, brings this action against Faith Evans for her wrongful takeover of a Delaware limited liability company owned 50% by the trust. Wow. Okay. Now, I also did research, and I know that Valletta, um, she partnered with the company, and they reportedly partnered for $200 million. So I'm trying to see how that partnership factors into here. So let's get into the nature of the action. Valletta Wallace was the mother of Christopher Wallace, also known as the Notorious B.I.G., a groundbreaking and influential rap artist whose legacy and cultural impact have made him one of the most iconic figures in the history of hip hop. Following her son's untimely death in 1997, Miss Wallace diligently managed and grew the company, holding his intellectual property, Notorious B.I.G. LLC, into a highly successful enterprise and significantly expanded the value of his estate. Indeed, shortly before her death earlier this year, Miss Wallace negotiated and approved a transformative deal with prominent independent music publisher, it's redacted, but they sold 50%, and it was for $200 million. Okay, the transaction closed in March 2025. Mr. Barrow, a manager and trusted advisor to the Notorious B.I.G., also worked closely with Miss Wallace for decades. Wow, okay, so he's known her for decades, and played a central role in helping her manage the LLC and preserve her son's legacy. In 2020, Miss Wallace appointed Mr. Barrow as trustee of her trust and as executor of her estate. At the same time, Miss Wallace, who owned a 50% interest in the LLC, assigned her entire interest to the trust, which was a permitted transfer under the LLC's operating agreement. The 50% of the LLC not owned by the trust is held by defendant Faith Evans. All right, so real fast, shortly before her death, Miss Wallace negotiated and approved a transformative deal with a prominent independent music publisher. I know that it is 50% and it's for 200. I'm just trying to get the percentages here. Okay, so Miss Wallace appointed Mr. Burrow as trustee of her trust and as executor of her estate. At the same time, Miss Wallace, who owned a 50% interest in the LLC, assigned her entire interest to the trust, which was a permitted transfer. Okay. The 50% of the LLC not owned by the trust is held by Faith Evans. Miss Evans was married to the notorious B.I.G., but was in the process of divorcing him at the time of his death. Why did they put that in there? Like, it doesn't matter. The divorce never happened. He died. Miss Wallace and Miss Evans were co-managers of the LLC. However, Miss Evans played little to no role in its management and was not involved in the day-to-day operations, which were handled exclusively by Mr. Wallace and Mr. Barrow. Miss Wallace and Mr. Barrow. Here's the thing with that is I know that Biggie was getting some money for writing some songs for Faith. Had to be. Now, we know that she wasn't a deal with Puffy, but I'm sure that he was writing some songs or doing something. Like, she was involved in some way, shape, or form. It didn't have to be managerial. Like, she was bringing money into this LLC somehow, some way. Miss Wallace died on February 21st. So she died on February 21st, but the transaction closed in March of 2025. So she never even seen all of the money from the transaction. Okay. The trust interest in the LLC will ultimately be distributed to the Christopher Wallace Memorial Foundation. Okay, because she put all of her interests into the trust. We got that. Following Mrs. Wallace's death, Miss Evans seized control of the LLC by refusing to recognize the trust as a 50% member. How? Worse, she wrongfully withheld the trust share of the net sale proceeds in the amount of, okay, I would assume $100 million, right? Because that's 50% of the 200, but we don't know. It's redacted. Although she has signed documents expressly confirming that the trust holds a 50% membership interest in the LLC and that Mr. Burrowes serves as its trustee. Ms. Evans initially claimed that she was not aware of the trust membership and questioned both the existence of the trust and Mr. Burrowes' authority to act on his behalf. Well, Faith, all of that seems like it has been written down. And Miss Valletta doesn't seem like she was in duress when she made him her executor, since she's known him for 10 years. So I'm not sure about that. For months, Miss Evans insisted on unnecessary and ever-shifting demands for verification of facts already in her possession. Despite Mr. Barrow providing her with all the relevant materials, including documents far exceeding what she was entitled to, Miss Evans continues to acknowledge the trust membership interest or its entitlements to distribution. She has also failed to provide Mr. Barrow with access to LLC documents and has kept him entirely in the dark about the business and affairs of the LLC. Clearly, she doesn't feel like you're entitled to know that information after Miss Valletta's death. So there's something going on there. Miss Evans' actions are particularly troubling, given that, unlike Mr. Burrowes, she has never previously been involved with the LLC's management and has conceded that she is not familiar with the affairs of the LLC and is getting up to speed. Okay. She should be included, though, regardless if she had prior management within the LLC or not. She should still be included. Accordingly, Mr. Barrow brings this action seeking a declaration that A, the trust is a 50% member of the LLC, that B, Mr. Barrow, as trustee of the trust, is entitled to distributions from, this is what this is all about. He's not getting paid. That he's entitled to distribution from the LLC, including the immediate distribution of that amount that Miss Evans has been wrongly withholding. So he just wants the money. He wants this money. Mr. Barrow, as trustee of the trust, is entitled to all books, papers, and records of the LLC. Mr. Barrow also seeks specific performance compelling compliance with the deadlock resolution provision of LLC agreement so that Miss Evans may be removed as manager, and Mr. Burrow may be appointed as successor manager of the LLC. I don't think so. I don't agree with that. I don't think that's okay. No. This is it. Number 9. He just wants the money. That's it. That's all this is about. And when is it not about that? Okay. Let's just go through the statement of facts, that I'm going to wrap up. On or about March 8th, 2023, Ms. Wallace and Ms. Evans signed an amended and restated operating agreement. Okay. Each member, that noise. Sorry, y'all. Each member assigned a blank interest in its distribution to the notorious B.I.G.'s Tiana Wallace and Christopher Wallace. Each member assigned interest in its distribution. Well, Faith has 50%, so they're going to divvy that up into thirds, right? So it's going to be, she's going to get a third of the 50%, Tiana is going to get a third of the 50%, and CJ is going to get a third of the 50%. So accordingly, each member only has a blank interest in the LLC's distributions. The LLC agreement expressly states, because look, if Faith only has 50% and she has to divide that by 3, and then this man has a full 50%, like, how is that fair? How do the wife and the kids have less percentage than you? No, I don't think that's right. The LLC expressly states that Ms. Wallace's membership interest may be transferred to the trust. Indeed, Ms. Evans negotiated a similar provision allowing her to transfer her membership interest to blank. The LLC agreement requires that as soon as practicable following the end of each fiscal quarter, the LLC shall make distributions in cash or property to the members in proportion to their respective percentage interest. This man just wants this money, and he probably was taking Miss Valletta for everything that she had. Wow. Okay. The LLC agreement designated Ms. Wallace and Ms. Evans as co-managers. The LLC agreement vests the managers with certain powers, but requires majority consent by the members with respect to certain matters, including the following: approving any salary arrangements with the managers or members, declaration of distribution to members, and the determination of the amount of cash available for distribution and expending company's funds, and to prepare and file on behalf of the company any required local, state, and federal tax returns or other tax reports or documents relating to the company. Okay, so they all have to agree. Majority consent means the affirmative vote, in person or by proxy, or written consent of the members owning more than 50% of the percentage interest owned by the members. Okay. The LLC agreement also requires the managers to provide certain financial records to the members, including the following: within 75 days after the end of each fiscal quarter, the company shall distribute to each member a company audited balance sheet. Okay, within 90 days, they have to shall send to each member such information relating to the company as required by law. Okay, any federal, state, or local income tax. The LLC agreement further provides that any manager may be removed for cause by majority consent. Cause includes willful violation of any express reasonable direction or requirement established by a majority in percentage interest of the members. Okay, blah, 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 blah. In the event of a manager's death, an interim manager appointed by majority consent may serve as manager until such time as A, those of the manager's heirs succeeding to ownership of her membership interests in the company have been finally determined, and B, a successor manager has been selected. All right, so let's get down to the actions. Ms. Wallace created the trust under agreement dated December 14th, 2020, in which she served as both grantor and trustee. The trust agreement provided that if Ms. Wallace ceases to qualify or to act as trustee, or upon her death, Mr. Barrow, among others, shall serve as a successor trustee of trust. That says a lot to me about Valletta and Faith Evans' relationship. Because why? Ms. Wallace amended the trust agreement on February 6, 2025. As relevant here, the amendment provides that Mr. Burrowes shall serve as the sole successor trustee of the trust. What? Under the trust agreement, as amended, the LLC interest is to be distributed to the Christopher Wallace Memorial Foundation. This was established by Miss Wallace in 1997 in memory of her son. Its core mission is to give back to the community, particularly by advancing educational opportunities and positive youth development. Mr. Burrow is one of the board members of the Christopher Wallace Memorial Foundation. On December 14th, 2020, Ms. Wallace also executed a last will and testament appointing Mr. Barrow, among others, to serve as an executor of her estate. Ms. Wallace subsequently executed a codicil to the will to provide that Mr. Barrow shall serve as the sole executor of her estate. Who is Mr. Barrow to her? She gave this man, all her trusts. The will bequeathed Miss Wallace's entire estate to the trust, of which you gave him control, to be disposed of as provided in the trust agreement. Oh my gosh. All right, Miss Wallace died February 21st, 2025. Upon Miss Wallace's death, Miss Evans became the sole manager of the LLC. Since Ms. Evans had not been actively involved in managing the LLC and served as a manager in name only, she is not familiar with the business and affairs of the company. No, what it is that since she has become manager, she's not distributing that cash to you. That's what that is. And that's what he's upset about. It doesn't have anything to do with the fact that she's not familiar with the business and the affairs of the company, because she was manager before with Valletta and she didn't know what was going on. And you didn't have a problem with it. Now you have a problem with it because she's not distributing that cash. On March 6, Mr. Burrowes accepted his appointment as successor trustee of trust. Mr. Burrow has served as trustee of the trust since the date of his acceptance. March 6th, 2025. All right, as part of the sale of the LLC's assets, Ms. Evans signs documents confirming that Mr. Burrow. Okay, so yeah, she's aware that you are the trustee of the trust, is a 50% member. That is wild. Wild. Okay, Ms. Evans breaches her fiduciary duties and the LLC agreement by improperly refusing to distribute the sale proceeds to the trust and by wrongfully withholding other information from the trust. So Ms. Evans has I can't talk, y'all. I'm tired. It's only 9:45. Has distributed sale proceeds to Tiana CJ and presumably to herself. She, however, has wrongfully withheld the trust's 50% share of the proceeds in the amount of, I'm pretty sure it's $100 million. She has also refused to provide Mr. Barrow with a copy of the asset purchase agreement, right? Because this is an asset purchase agreement that was between Valletta and that publishing company who bought 50% for $200 million and instructed the LLC's counsel and the buyer not to do so either. So Faith is pretty much trying to get him out of this. However, he slithered his way into this deal with Miss Valletta. Faith is trying to get him out, and she's not paying him what it seems like he is owed, but it's like, why? Why are you owed? Why? How did you get into this? Despite sending documents confirming the trust ownership in the LLC, Ms. Evans initially falsely claimed that she does not know that the trust is a 50% member of the LLC. Okay. She advised that no distribution should be or will be made unless verification has been secured. So she's telling him, look, you're not getting nothing. You was playing with Miss Valletta and you was getting cash. But now that I'm in charge, you're not getting any. On April 4th, 2025, Mr. Burrow provided Ms. Evans with a copy of the assignment in his acceptance of trusteeship, which she likely already had. Nonetheless, Ms. Evans claimed that those documents did not constitute sufficient verification and appeared to question even the existence of the trust and Mr. Burrowes' appointment as trustee. She then demanded a copy of the trust agreement, which, as Mr. Barrow later learned, she likely already has as well. I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I would believe you either. I mean, it seems as though the documentation maybe is valid, because it seems like he had a relationship with Miss Valletta for a long time, with Biggie for a long time. That's what it appears. But to have a relationship with Biggie and Miss Valletta for such a long time, and then everything be so contentious with Faith, that's odd. To the point that she is like trying to say, I don't believe that you have valid documents. I don't believe that these are verified. Like, oh my God, it's too much. Miss Evans is not a beneficiary of the trust. So she is not entitled to a copy of the trust agreement. Oh, so he felt like he don't even have to provide her with that documentation. In an effort to avoid litigation, however, on April 18th, 2025, Mr. Barrow provided all of the relevant excerpts from the trust agreement and its amendment. Ms. Barrow also provided redacted bank statements showing that distributions from the LLC were deposited into the trust bank account. So he's showing, look, Miss Valletta been paying me. She been paying me. You're not finna stop paying me. You gonna keep paying me because Valletta has been paying me and supporting my lifestyle. You're gonna keep this up. Finally, Mr. Barrow reminded Faith, Miss Evans, that he executed a member written consent on behalf of the trust. I'm sorry, y'all, that he executed a member written consent on behalf of the trust. In the member consent, Mr. Barrow approved and consented to the asset purchase sale and authorized Ms. Evans to execute all documents necessary to consummate the sale. Okay. Mr. Barrow also reminded Ms. Evans that she relied on this document in completing the transaction, further belaying the need for Ms. Evans' continuing request for verification. So he's basically saying, look, you need the paperwork in order to complete that sale for $200 million. I gave you that paperwork. And then now, after the sale is complete, and now that you've gotten the money, the $200 million, now you're trying to say that the documents weren't even valid. You're trying to say I need verification. Mr. Barrow asked Ms. Evans to distribute the trust share of the sale, the trust of which he's in control, proceeds by April 25th, 2025, and thereafter discuss the appointment of Mr. Barrow as co-manager of the LLC. Mr. Barrow is well qualified to serve as a manager of the LLC, having first worked with the Notorious B.I.G. and thereafter having assisted Ms. Wallace with the company's management for decades. He also has a relationship with the LLC's new partner, who is that publishing company, right? Who gave them that $200 million. Mr. Burrowes' experience, relationship, and expertise are particularly important, given that, as Ms. Evans' attorney acknowledged, Evans needs assistance with the management of the company. Well, with that $100 million, she can figure it out. Although Mr. Barrow provided all of the relevant documents and information to Ms. Evans, she continued to wrongfully withhold the sale proceeds from the trust. She has also refused to provide any documents to the trust and has kept Mr. Barrow in the dark regarding the business and affairs of the LLC, which is deeply troubling. This man could give two shits about the business or the details. The only thing that he wants is his half of that $200 million. That's all. That's all. So, like I said, this was filed in the summer, in July of 2025. So we will see what happens with it, but I just found it to be really interesting to talk about, considering that he is now the spokesperson or he's acting as the spokesperson for the estate to refute the claims by Kirk Burrowes, who's saying, listen, Biggie had an amazing funeral, but he paid for his own funeral. And this man is coming out saying, no, he didn't. I would not be surprised. If Puffy was getting something on the back end for this particular deal, because we remember that Puffy had 50% of Biggie's publishing. And then he gave Miss Valletta the publishing after a while. So while Biggie was at his height, he had control of the publishing. So he got so much money from that. And then I think, I forgot exactly what year it was, but yeah, Biggie wasn't, as hot as he was. Now his music is going to be timeless, but he wasn't as hot as he was in the 90s. And Biggie gave those publishing rights back to his mom. So because Puffy is so, just a snake, I would not be surprised that he is involved with Barrow on the back end, and he is getting money from this particular estate on the back end. And that may be why Faith is like, no. Because it's a reason why she's withholding. It's a reason why she's not distributing the cash. There is a reason why. We will stay tuned on this particular case. And yeah, don't forget to like and subscribe. Talk to you soon.